Hi, and welcome to today's lesson on ratios and proportions, and a special welcome to the students joining us from Mr. Ason's math class. In this problem, we're going to take a look at how to convert words for a ratios and proportions question, how to convert these words into a numerical and variable expression where we can do a little bit of math, a little bit of algebra, and solve for a missing value. So let's take a look. In this case, it says 3 to 5 is equal to x to 15. Now, when we talk about ratios, what a ratio is a relationship. You can think of it essentially as the most reduced form of a fraction that shows the amount of one thing compared to another. So, for example, in your class, if you have, let's say, 7 boys and 5 girls in the class, then the ratio of boys to girls in the class would be 7 to 5. So it's just showing a relationship, a numerical relationship between two things. In this case, the first ratio here, it says 3 to 5. Now there are a few ways we can write ratios. Sometimes you'll see ratios written with a colon in between the two numbers. So 3 to 5 could also be expressed as 3 colon 5, and we would read this in a problem as 3 to 5. The trouble with using a colon, or with using the word to, is that it doesn't allow us to do math. We don't have any math rules for what to do with a colon or what to do with the word to. So another way, and the preferred way to get in a habit of setting up ratios with, is to set ratios up as a fraction, numerator to denominator. So when it says 3 to 5, that's also the same thing as saying 3 over 5. And you can read 3 over 5 as a ratio. You can read it as 3 to 5. And that's a little bit more beneficial because once we get into solving questions, we can do math with fractions. We have certain steps that we can take whenever we're dealing with fractions. Sometimes we'll have to cross multiply, sometimes we'll have to add or subtract fractions, but we're able to do math with those numbers when they're in fraction form. So let's see if we can finish writing out this proportion. Now when we use the word proportion, the difference between ratios and proportions, a ratio is just the fraction, one fraction, that shows the relationship between these two things. A proportion is going to be two fractions, or two ratios, set equal to each other. So this problem says 3 to 5 is equal to means we're going to put in an equal sign. And then it says x to 15. So we're going to set that up as a fraction. And again, you can also write that x to 15 as x colon 15. But for our purposes, we want to write that as a fraction so that we can do some math with these numbers. So now we have this ratio 3 to 5 is equal to x to 15. And then once we have these ratios set equal to each other, once we have our proportions set up, we're going to cross multiply. And what that means when we say cross multiply is that we're going to multiply across the equal sign. So we're going to do 3 times 15, and we're going to do 5 times x. And the key is our equal sign must stay there. So we have 3 times 15 is equal to 5 times x, or 5x. So 3 times 15 will give us 45. And if that's a calculation that we're not comfortable doing in our head, we can use a calculator to multiply those numbers together. And then 45 is equal to 5x. Now we have to solve for x, divide both sides by 5. And we get 9 equals x as our final answer for that missing variable in this proportion. If you have questions or would like to see other topics covered, please feel free to leave a comment in the comments section. Otherwise, please feel free to visit our website at www.sandersontestprep.com. The link is in the description below. Thanks.